Vanessa! How many men are you seeing behind my back?
The same number of women you used to keep, Daniel.
So this is how all those women felt. Vanessa, tell me the truth. Was any of it real?
You taught women not to trust men like you.
I loved you.
Now you know how Clara felt, how Tracy felt, how all of them felt.
He had broken 7 hearts in 3 years, and he was proud of it. Daniel Brown was the kind of man women pointed at in restaurants and forgot their own names. Tall, clean-shaven, with a jaw that looked like it had been carved out of dark mahogany wood. He dressed like money, even when he was spending someone else's. He smelled like cedar and confidence, and he smiled. God, that smile. Like he already knew you were going to say yes before you even opened your mouth. Lagos knew men like Daniel. Every street had one. Every office block had one. The kind of man your mother warned you about while secretly wishing she had met him 20 years earlier. The kind of man who could look a woman in her eyes, hold both her hands and say, "You are different from every woman I have ever met," and mean it for exactly 3 months. Daniel was 31 years old, and he had never, not once, been faithful to a woman. Not to Nena, the nurse from Surulere, who cooked for him every Sunday and ironed his shirts without being asked. Not to Favor, the quiet school teacher who cried when he stopped calling and still sent him a birthday message every year. Not to Tracy, who found out about the others and threw his shoes out of a 3rd-floor window while the whole street watched. Not even to Clara, the one woman who had truly, completely, dangerously loved him. He left them all, not because they did anything wrong, not because they were not beautiful enough, or smart enough, or good enough. He left them because staying felt like a door closing. Because the moment a relationship became real, the moment a woman started asking where he was going and when he would be back, something cold and restless woke up inside him, and it whispered, "There is something better waiting. Go and find it." So he always went. His friends called him a legend. His younger brother Festus laughed and called him a demon with good cologne. His mother, a soft-spoken woman who still prayed for him every morning, simply said, "Daniel, one day, life will teach you what you refuse to learn." He always kissed her cheek and told her not to worry. He was not worried, not even a little. On the morning everything changed, Daniel was sitting at a corner table inside a sleek rooftop cafe in Victoria Island, scrolling through his phone while waiting for a business contact who was already 40 minutes late. The air smelled of ground coffee and expensive perfume. The Lagos skyline stretched out behind the glass railing like a painting that did not know how beautiful it was. He was not looking for anyone. That was the thing about Daniel. The best ones always found him when he was not looking. He heard her laugh first. It was not a small laugh. It was not a polite cover-your-mouth laugh. It was full and rich and completely unashamed, the kind of laugh that filled the room and dared anyone to ignore it. Daniel looked up from his phone. She was standing near the entrance with 2 other women, wearing a burnt orange wrap dress that moved when she moved. Natural hair pinned up with one curl falling loose across her forehead. Skin so smooth it caught the morning light and held it. She was talking on the phone with one hand and gesturing with the other, running the entire conversation like someone who was used to being in charge. She was the most commanding woman Daniel had ever seen in his life. He straightened in his chair without realizing it. He put his phone face down on the table. He forgot about the business contact who was now 50 minutes late. He forgot about everything actually, because she was walking in his direction now, scanning the room for a free table, and their eyes met for exactly 2 seconds. She did not smile. She looked at him like a woman looks at a painting she has already decided she does not want to buy, briefly, without apology, and then she looked away. Daniel felt something land in his chest like a stone dropped into still water. He was used to women looking at him and lighting up. He was used to the shy smiles, the tucked chins, the sudden self-consciousness. He was not used to this. He was not used to being assessed and filed away in under 3 seconds. He picked up his phone, put it down again, picked it up again. Then he stood up, buttoned his shirt and walked over to her table. He had no plan. Daniel Brown always had a plan, but not today. Today, he just walked over and said the only honest thing he had said to a woman in years. I don't usually do this, but I couldn't not come over. She looked up at him slowly, like she had all the time in the world and was choosing how much of it to give him. Do what? She said. Introduce myself to a woman who already decided I wasn't worth her time. Something shifted in her face then. Not a smile, not yet, but the beginning of one hiding behind her eyes. Vanessa, she said, and she did not extend her hand. Daniel. She tilted her head slightly. Sit down, Daniel, but only if you're actually interesting. He sat down, and just like that, the man who had never truly fallen for anyone in his life sat down across from the one woman who was about to make him understand every single tear he had ever caused. Vanessa Cole was everything Daniel thought he wanted and nothing he was prepared for. She ran a luxury skincare brand called Velour, small but growing fast, with stockists in 3 states and a waiting list for her signature facial oil that stretched 2 months long. She had built it from a kitchen table in a 1-room apartment in Yaba 4 years ago, and now she had a proper office in Lekki with 4 full-time staff and a social media following that brands paid to be featured on. She was 30 years old. She had never been married. She did not explain herself to anyone. Daniel found this out gradually, the way you find out important things about people. Not from what they say, but from what they do not say. Vanessa did not volunteer information. She did not flood his phone with good morning messages or double text when he did not reply. She did not ask him where he had been or who he had been with. She showed up to their dates looking extraordinary and left before he was ready for her to go. She was, in short, completely different from anyone he had ever dated, and it terrified him in the best possible way. Their second date was at a jazz bar on the island. She wore all black, earrings that caught the candlelight, and she talked about business and philosophy and the specific frustration of being a woman in Lagos who refused to be underestimated. Daniel listened in a way he rarely listened, not waiting for a pause to speak, but actually listening, leaning forward, elbows on the table. "You are not what I expected," he told her. "What did you expect?" she asked. He thought about it honestly for the first time in his life. "Someone easier," he admitted. She smiled at that, a real smile this time, slow and deliberate, like she was opening a door she had kept closed for a long time. "Easy women are boring, Daniel. You know that better than anyone." He did not ask her what she meant by that. He was not sure he wanted to know. By the 3rd week, he was thinking about her constantly, not in the shallow, surface way he had thought about other women, the way you think about a song you like. He was thinking about her the way you think about something you are afraid of losing before you have even properly found it. He would be in a meeting and suddenly wonder what she was doing. He would be having dinner with friends and check his phone hoping she had messaged. She usually hadn't. And when he messaged her, she replied warmly but never desperately. There was always a feeling talking to Vanessa that she had a full life happening somewhere else and she was simply choosing to include him in parts of it. Not all of it, just parts. It drove him mad. "I think I really like this woman," he told Festus one evening, staring at his phone like it owed him something. Festus looked at his brother with wide eyes. "You? Like someone? Properly? Don't make it a big thing." "Daniel." Festus put his drink down. "You once broke up with a woman because she laughed too loudly. You once ended a 3-month relationship because the girl started leaving her things at your place. You told me with your own mouth that love was a trap designed for people who are afraid to be alone. I know what I said. And now you are sitting here staring at your phone like a teenage boy." Daniel said nothing because there was nothing to say. Something had shifted inside him, quietly and without his permission, like furniture rearranged in a room while he was sleeping. He did not feel like the man who collected hats and discarded them anymore. He felt for the first time like someone who desperately did not want to be left. The irony of it sat in his stomach like something he had swallowed wrong. By the 2nd month, they were official. Vanessa had agreed without fanfare, without drama, without the giddy breathlessness he had seen in other women when they got what they wanted. She had simply said, over pepper soup and cold drinks at a local spot she had chosen, "Okay, Daniel, let's do this. But understand, I don't do half measures. If we're doing this, we're doing it properly." Properly, he repeated. Yes, absolutely. He raised his glass, he raised his. He had never meant anything more sincerely in his life. He also had no idea, not even the faintest shadow of a clue, that Vanessa Cole was at that exact moment having the exact same conversation with two other men in two other parts of Lagos. The first sign came in the 3rd month, and Daniel almost missed it completely. He had surprised her at her office, something he had never done before, because Vanessa had made it gently but firmly clear early on that she valued her space and her schedule, and that unannounced visits were not romantic, they were disrespectful. He had respected that. But it was her birthday week, and he had her favorite flowers, white peonies, that had cost him more than he was willing to admit, and he wanted to see her face when she saw them. He walked into the velour office and told the receptionist, a young woman named Sonia, that he was Vanessa's boyfriend, and he was there to surprise her. Sonia's face did something complicated. It was not alarm exactly. It was not confusion either. It was the face of someone who had just heard a sentence and was quickly deciding how to respond to it. The face of someone who knew something. "She's in a meeting," Sonia said carefully. "I'll let her know you're here." "Don't worry, I'll just..." "Sir," Sonia stood up. "Please wait here. I'll let her know." Something in her voice made him stop. He waited. 3 minutes later, Vanessa appeared from the back corridor, looking polished and unbothered, and she smiled when she saw the flowers and kissed him on the cheek. But her eyes, just for a fraction of a second before the smile arrived, had been calculating, like she was running numbers. "You came to my office," she said. "It's your birthday week," I said. "I wanted to surprise you." "You are sweet," she took the flowers. "Next time, call first, yeah?" He nodded. He told himself it was nothing. She was a private person, a businesswoman. She liked her space. He understood that. He respected it. He took her to dinner that night at a restaurant in Ikoyi with low lights and high ceilings, and she was warm and funny and present. And by the end of the evening, he had convinced himself completely that the look on Sonia's face meant nothing. But the human body knows things before the mind is ready to accept them. He started noticing small things after that. The way her phone always faced down when they were together, the way she sometimes excused herself to take calls in the bathroom and came back slightly too composed, the way a person looks when they have just carefully arranged their expression. The evenings she was unavailable, always with a reasonable explanation, always delivered calmly, never defensive. He started asking questions he had never asked a woman before. "Who were you with last night?" "Friends, Daniel, I told you." "Which friends?" She gave him a long, patient look. "Are we doing this? Because I don't do this. I don't answer for my time." And every time she said something like that, he backed down, because she said it so reasonably, so steadily, that pushing further felt like his problem, like he was the insecure one, like he was the one behaving badly. He recognized this tactic. He had used it himself 100 times on 100 different women. The recognition sat in his gut like a lit match. If you've been watching since the beginning and this story is already getting under your skin, you are not alone. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss what happens next. Hit that bell. This story is about to go somewhere nobody is ready for. He called his friend Gideon one night, unable to sleep, lying in his bed staring at the ceiling while Vanessa's phone went to voicemail for the 3rd time. "I think she's seeing someone else," he said. Gideon was quiet for a moment. Then, "Daniel, bro, do you hear yourself?" "I'm serious." "You," Gideon said slowly, "the man who once dated 3 women at the same time and called it keeping his options open, you are lying awake suspecting your girlfriend of cheating." Daniel said nothing. "The universe," Gideon said, in a tone that was half sympathy and half pure amazement, "has a very specific sense of humor." Daniel hung up. He lay in the dark for a long time, and somewhere beneath the jealousy and the anxiety and the sick churning feeling in his stomach, something much older and much heavier was beginning to surface. Guilt. Not just suspicion, not just fear, but guilt, the slow creeping kind that arrives when you finally understand, in your body and your bones, what you have been doing to other people all along. He thought about Nena, waiting by her phone. He thought about Favor, crying alone somewhere. He thought about Clara, who loved him so completely that losing him had broken something in her that never fully healed. He thought about all of them. And for the first time in his life, Daniel Brown could not sleep because of what he had done, not what was being done to him.
It was Festus who found out first. Not because he was looking. Festus was at a client's meeting in a hotel lobby in Ikeja when he saw Vanessa across the room, unmistakable in a white blazer, natural hair out and full, laughing that big, unashamed laugh. He almost waved. Then he saw the man beside her. The man had his hand on the small of her back, the way a man touches a woman when she belongs to him. Festus stood very still. He watched for 2 minutes. He saw Vanessa lean into the man when she laughed. He saw her check his tie and straighten it with the easy familiarity of a woman who had done it many times before. He saw the man say something in her ear, and she tilted her head back and closed her eyes briefly, the kind of reaction that lives only between two people who know each other very, very well. Festus left the hotel and sat in his car for 15 minutes before he called his brother. "Daniel, I need to talk to you. Not on the phone. Come to my place tonight." Daniel knew from his brother's voice. He knew before he arrived. He knew the whole drive there, sitting in Lagos traffic with his jaw tight and his hands gripping the steering wheel. Music off, phone on silent. He knew. But knowing and hearing are two different kinds of pain. Festus told him everything quietly, without drama, showing him the photo he had taken discreetly from across the hotel lobby. Vanessa, white blazer, laughing, the man's hand on her back. Daniel looked at the photo for a long time. "Maybe it's a client," he said. His voice was flat. "Daniel, maybe it's a colleague or a..." His hand was on her back, Daniel, the way yours is on hers. Silence. Daniel put the phone down on the table face up, the photo still on the screen, and he sat back in the chair and pressed both hands over his face. What happened next was not what Festus expected. Daniel did not explode. He did not stand up and start pacing and making angry calls. He did not do any of the dramatic things men do when they discover they have been betrayed. He just sat there, and slowly, quietly, his shoulders started to shake. Festus had not seen his brother cry since their father's funeral 8 years ago. He did not know what to do with it now. He just sat beside him and said nothing, because there was nothing to say that would help. But this was only the beginning of what Daniel would discover. Because Festus had only seen one man, there were two others. It was Sonia, the receptionist at Velour, who had looked at him with that complicated face on his birthday visit, who told him the rest. She did not owe him anything, but she had a brother, she said, who had been treated badly by someone exactly like Vanessa, and she could not keep watching Daniel walk in with flowers and leave with no idea. She met him at a small cafe and slid a folded piece of paper across the table. 3 names, 3 men, all of them Vanessa had described as her boyfriend. All of them she had given different versions of herself. The soft one, the ambitious one, the romantic one. Like she was running different performances for different audiences, and none of them had ever been allowed to see the full picture. Stanley, a property developer from Abuja who flew in to see her twice a month. Lawrence, a quiet, well-dressed man who owned a logistics company and apparently had already been discussing marriage. And a third name that made Daniel's breath catch in his throat, because the third man on that list was someone Gideon had mentioned in passing weeks ago, a friend of a friend who had recently started dating a glamorous skincare entrepreneur on the island and could not stop talking about her. The world was that small. The truth was that close. Daniel folded the paper. He sat with the full weight of it pressing down on his chest. Not just the betrayal, but the architecture of it. How deliberate it was, how organized, how each man had been given just enough of her to feel chosen, while never being given enough to see the whole picture. You played all of you the same way, Sonia said gently. Like you are all options she was keeping warm. He drove home slowly that night. Not angry, not plotting. Something much more uncomfortable was happening inside him. Something that felt like standing in front of a mirror and seeing for the very first time exactly what you actually look like. He had done this, not to one woman, to many. He had given women just enough to feel chosen. He had kept them warm while he decided. He had used their love like a revolving door, comfortable on the way in, forgotten on the way out. He had been Vanessa. He had always been Vanessa.
He did not call her that night or the next morning. He waited 3 days, and in those 3 days, he did something he had never done after any of his own betrayals. He sat with the pain. He did not distract himself. He did not go out. He did not call another woman. He just sat in his apartment and let it hurt because he understood, perhaps for the first time, that this was what it felt like. This was what Tracy had felt. This was what Clara had felt, curled up somewhere crying for a man who was already planning his next move. This was the specific, airless quality of being someone's option when you believed with your whole heart that you were their choice. On the 4th day, he called Vanessa and asked her to meet him. She came to his apartment looking exactly as beautiful as the first day he had seen her. Burnt orange dress this time, different from the first, but the same energy, that controlled, self-possessed beauty that had undone him completely 3 months ago. She walked in and sat down on his sofa and crossed her legs and looked at him with calm, open eyes, which was somehow the most infuriating thing she could have done. "You've been quiet," she said. "I was starting to wonder." "Why you?" he said. "Or were you just feeling the time?" Something small flickered in her eyes. "What does that mean?" He put the folded paper on the table between them. He watched her look at it. He watched her face go very still. "Stanley, Lawrence, and a third man who is apparently a friend of mine, which means Lagos is much smaller than either of us thought." Vanessa looked at the paper for a long time. She did not pick it up. She did not deny it. She just looked at it the way a person looks at a bill they already knew was coming. "How long?" Daniel asked. "Does it matter?" "How long, Vanessa?" She exhaled slowly. "The whole time," she said. "Stanley I have known for 2 years. Lawrence about 8 months. You came in somewhere in the middle." The words landed like flat stones on still water. Clean, final, irrefutable. Did any of it mean anything? His voice was quiet. He hated how quiet it was. He had wanted to be cold, controlled, unreachable, but his voice came out like a man asking a real question and needing a real answer. Vanessa looked at him then, really looked at him, and for the first time since he had known her, the performance dropped. Not completely, but enough. "You've been quiet," she said. "You want the honest answer or the kind one?" "Honest." "You are interesting," she said, "genuinely. You are different from most men I meet. You are charming and present, and I enjoyed our time." She paused. "But I don't trust men who are too charming, Daniel. I learned that the hard way. So I keep options, because options keep you safe." "Safe," he repeated. "You kept 3 men at the same time because you are scared?" "Weren't you?" she said. "Every woman you ever left, weren't you scared? Wasn't that exactly why you left? Because getting close felt dangerous, so you stayed in control by never fully choosing anyone?" The room went very quiet. He wanted to argue. He opened his mouth and closed it again, because she was right. She was describing him. She was using his own architecture, his own logic, his own emotional blueprint, and holding it up in front of his face so he could finally see it from the outside. "The difference," he said slowly, "is that I knew what I was. I never asked anyone to believe I was choosing them. Neither did I, not really. I just let you believe what you wanted to believe, like you did with all of them." He stood up, walked to the window. The Lagos evening stretched out below. Orange sky, generator hum, and the endless movement of a city that never fully stopped. "Get out," he said. Not loudly, not with anger, just with the absolute finality of a man who had finally, completely arrived at the end of something. He heard her stand, he heard her pick up her bag, he heard her pause at the door. "For what it's worth," she said, "I think this is the most honest conversation you've had with a woman in years." He did not turn around. He heard the door close. He stood at the window for a long time, and then slowly, he picked up his phone and did something that surprised even himself. He scrolled to Clara's name. He did not call, not yet. He was not ready yet, and he knew it. But he looked at her name for a long time, thinking about what it meant to owe someone an apology that was years overdue, thinking about what it meant to have been the source of someone else's pain, and finally, be standing in the middle of your own. 3 months passed. Lagos moved the way Lagos always moved. Loud, relentless, indifferent to the small private earthquakes happening inside its people. Businesses opened and closed. Traffic crawled on the bridge at 7 in the morning. Life continued. Daniel continued too, but differently. He had not started dating again. He had no interest in it, not because he was broken, though some days it felt that way, but because he was doing something he had never done before. He was sitting with himself, getting to know the man who had spent a decade running from real connection and calling it freedom, understanding what he was actually afraid of and where that fear had come from, in the quiet, honest way that requires no audience. He had started seeing a therapist, a calm, direct man named Dr. Thompson, who asked uncomfortable questions and never accepted the charming deflections Daniel had spent a lifetime perfecting. It was, Daniel told Festus, the hardest thing he had ever done. Harder than any breakup, harder than being betrayed. The hardest thing was looking at himself without armor and not immediately looking away. But he did not look away. He thought about all the women he had hurt, not obsessively, not to torture himself, but with the clear-eyed acknowledgement of someone who understands that running from consequences does not erase them. It only delays the day you have to face what you built. He called Tracy first. She did not pick up, and he did not try again. He left a message, not asking for forgiveness, not explaining himself, just saying simply, "I was wrong. I am sorry. I hope you are well." He meant it. He called Favor. She picked up on the second ring, her voice careful and slightly guarded. He told her the same thing. She was quiet for a moment and then she said, "Thank you, Daniel. That means more than you know." Her voice broke on the last word and he stayed on the line until she composed herself because it was the least he could do and he knew it. Clara was the hardest one. He called her on a Sunday morning when the city was quieter than usual, sitting on his balcony with coffee he had not touched. She picked up after 5 rings and just hearing her voice made something tight and painful move in his chest. "Daniel," she said, "careful. Not cold, but careful." "Daniel." He stopped, started again. "I don't want anything from this call. I am not calling to reopen anything or to make myself feel better at your expense. I need you to know that I understood eventually what I did to you, what it cost you, and I am genuinely, deeply sorry." Long silence. "Are you okay?" she asked finally. The question caught him completely off guard. After everything, after all of it, her first response was to ask if he was okay. He pressed his fist briefly against his mouth. "I'm getting there," he said honestly. "That's the best I can say." "Okay," she said softly. "That's enough." They talked for 20 minutes. Nothing dramatic, nothing resolved that could not be unresolved. Some things break and stay broken, and that is simply the truth. But they talked like two people who once were important to each other and were choosing consciously to end the story with dignity instead of damage. When they hung up, Daniel sat for a long time and watched the morning light spread slowly across the Lagos sky. He thought about Vanessa, not with bitterness, not with longing, but with something almost like gratitude, because whatever she had been and whatever she had done, she had handed him a mirror at exactly the right moment. She had shown him his own face, and sometimes that is the most important thing another person can do for you, even if they do it entirely by accident and entirely for their own reasons. He was not the same man who had sat in that rooftop cafe 12 months ago. He was not yet the man he wanted to become, but he was facing the right direction, and he was walking, not running, not hiding, not performing, just walking with his eyes open and his hands empty and his heart, for the first time in a very long time, genuinely his own. His mother called that afternoon, the way she always did on Sundays. "How are you, my son?" "I'm good, Mama." And this time, he was not saying it to reassure her. He was saying it because he meant it, in the incomplete, still in progress, one day at a time way that real goodness actually grows. She must have heard something different in his voice, something settled. "Daniel," she said warmly, "you sound like yourself." He smiled at the sky. "I'm getting there, Mama. I'm getting there." Some people only understand the weight of a stone when it finally lands on their own chest. Daniel Brown spent years throwing stones, and the day one came back to him, it did not destroy him, it rebuilt him. The man who never stayed finally learned how to stand still, not for a woman, but for himself. And that, more than any love story, is where real change begins. If this story moved you, if it made you think about someone you know, subscribe right now and turn on your notifications. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and we will see you in the next one.